Hi, how are you? Welcome to episode 8 of the Good Enough Human podcast in association with We Are Chester. I'm Angela Ferguson, and this week I've got the honour of chatting to the professional rebel MarieClaire Ashcr about her important work in terms of helping people with confidence and self-discovery. There will even be a sprinkling of fairy dust, nay, a liberal sprinkling of fairy dust, may I add. Hope you enjoy it. Do get in touch as ever if there's anything you want to share with us, any thoughts for future episodes of the podcast. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. I shall leave you to enjoy the wisdom of MarieClaire Ashcr. Hi and welcome to the Good Enough Human podcast. And this week we have a guest with a difference who I'm hoping is going to energise me and you listening. It gives me great pleasure to introduce MarieClaire Ashcr, also known as Professional Rebel. And she describes herself as a photographer, a confidence and self-discovery facilitator, and an all-round fairy dust sprinkler, which is my favourite bit of your job title. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's brilliant. So chuffed that you agreed to chat to us because we at We Are Chester have admired your work for quite some time now, mainly from a distance. Not that we're stalking you or anything, but I remember bumping into you at the Storyhouse Women Weekend. I think we were just chatting, weren't we, off air, so to speak. Probably a few years ago now, but I think you left your mark on me then. It was really inspiring and you were really fun to be with, and you were sort of buzzing around, and it was all part of a great atmosphere, and you were taking really arty, fantastic pictures and working your magic, I think is fair to say.
My fairy dust.
Yeah, we love a bit of fairy dust. You can't have enough fairy dust in life, can you? That's for sure.
Definitely not.
No. So, putting you on the spot now, MarieClaire, tell us a bit about what you do, because we're fascinated.
I love spreading joy, and I love showing people how awesome they are, giving them sort of permission and daring them to be their best self, to show up in life. Yeah, just to make the most out of life. And I know a lot of people sort of hold themselves back. I used to see it a lot with my photography. You know, as soon as you stick a camera in someone's face, like literally their whole energy changes. And so whether I've got a camera in someone's face or not, I just love to be able to show people how amazing they are. I suffered from the old stinky thinking myself for many years, and I just love to be able to uplift people and remind them who they are so they can do awesome things, because the world needs more awesome people doing more awesome things.
Oh wow, we so do. No, I'm intrigued. You mentioned stinky thinking. I love the way you sort of inject energy and life into everything. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
About stinky thinking?
Or what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. Well, as somebody who, a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them, because when you meet me, I've got lots of energy, I've got a giant smile, I am normally dressed like a rainbow, but a lot of people do not believe that I have a history of low self-esteem and depression and anxiety, and it's just something that held me back for such a long time, not only from, life successes or going after the things that were important for me, but it stole my joy, and it just was not the way to live. And eventually, I thought, life's too short for this sort of stuff. I need to do something about this. And, part of that is stinky thinky. We all have that voice in our head, or numerous, depending on the occasion.
Oh,
we
yes.
have those voices. We have that energy. Not everyone has a voice in their head. Some people experience a shift in energy that just weighs them down whenever they want to do something. And this is all learned stuff, and I just see it steal so much opportunity from people. And I think the world would be a much better place if we stopped listening to that voice, if we broke free from that heavy energy and just did things to, spread ripples of joy and awesomeness out into the world.
I love that. That is, you see, just talking to you now has uplifted me, MarieClaire. I was reading, I've got to say, I was reading some of the reviews that things people have said about you. And one reviewer described you as a miracle worker. Another review said, you have a special gift. The world needs more of you. And I thought, oh, wow. What glowing commendation. We need to clone you by the sounds of it, MarieClaire.
I don't think the world's ready for more than one.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the things people say about you, because I know that you get out and about and, pre-lockdown and do lots of different workshops, work with people, uplift people. I think you do sort of personal branding sessions as well, where you work with people to get the best out of them. And you can see from the photos because for any... If you're listening now, MarieClaire's got lots of different social media channels, which we'll cover later to make sure you can look in on those and enjoy for yourself some of the amazing uplifting photos and creative photos. You clearly do have that gift. So,
Thank you. Well, it's really important to me because one thing that held me back when I first set up my first business was not sort of having any faith in myself. So I've sort of repeated patterns pre-business life of doing what I thought I should and not having the confidence to trust my own ideas. And then once I got past that, I started seeing it in other business owners. So that's the sort of side of the personal branding that I do, because I've managed to connect with a lot of, it yourself from the events we go to and online sort of networking. You meet a lot of people who have got amazing ideas. They want to change communities. They want to uplift others. They want to change the world in their own special way, and changing the world doesn't have to be, this massive, world change. You don't have to be Tony Robbins or someone like that. You can change your community. You can change your school. You can change people, on a one-to-one level. And like I said, that ripple effect of, one person at a time. And again, that sort of stinky thinking was coming into these people, and they weren't even able to sort of fully show up and be noticed in their businesses. And it's like, well, if you can't put yourself out there, if you can't get your business noticed, you're not going to make that impact that you want. So I work on sort of many levels of this sort of uplifting and, just sticking a rocket up people's butts, basically.
And many of us need that. And I think, the elephant in the room, we can't get away from the fact we're recording this in the midst of third lockdown. We've been through over a year now of pandemic. And I was reading an article online that a friend shared just minutes before we sort of started recording the podcast, talking about the impact that this third lockdown has had on people. And I could relate to it so much. Things like forgetting why you went into a room. I've been doing that so much lately, and ups and downs. One minute I'm feeling really positive and focused. The next minute I'm really flat and really struggling and feeling a bit rubbish. So I think I was hoping that you might spread some of that joy via the podcast and maybe share any tips to help if you're listening now and thinking, oh gosh, I'm fed up. How am I going to cope? It's going to be a little bit longer yet before things sort of roll out and get back to normal. And there could be a bit more of an impact ongoing. How do we sort of grab life back? And any tips, any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, totally. Well, I'm sorry you've been feeling like that, but it's totally common. So if anyone's listening is sort of relating to that, it is really, really common. And like one of the things that I really share, is basically, it's not just about being happy all the time. People misconstrue sort of my vibe sometimes, because I don't come across as super sort of straight-faced serious about my work. And I think sometimes people can misconstrue me as being a bit zany. And I'm not about what I call rolling poop in glitter, It's about, you've got to accept that these I'm using inverted commas now, that negative emotions, you've got to let them come as well. And this third lockdown, I'll admit it as well, has been really tough. And I've struggled with with the darker nights, obviously we're getting past that now, but, around Christmas time, around the new year, I really struggled myself. And what I just want to say is ignore all the sort of go, go, go productivity. You've got to be doing a lot, and allow yourself to feel that slump occasionally, because the more you resist things sometimes, the more they persist. And I describe this like a beach ball. Every time you sit in the swimming pool and you push down a beach ball for a bit of fun, your arms get tired.
Yeah.
And you're trying to force this down, and eventually your arm will get tired. The beach ball will smack you in the face. And I find that's the same with sort of trying to suppress any negative feelings. It's part of life. You've got to have the good, you've got to have the bad. And again, I'm using this loosely. So go easy on yourself. If you're having a slump, just give yourself a day, 48 hours, and go, all right, you're an unwelcome house guest. You may stay here for 48 hours and then you may move on. And just remember to do things that are fun. It's a very sort of serious time. We don't know what's going on, especially this time last year when everything was happening. We didn't know whether we'd all be here this time next year. So just remember to do the things that light you up. Put some music on, have a dance, cook your favourite food, phone somebody. I suggested to somebody who I'm working with at the moment, those sorts of feelings like, when you're having a bad day and you don't want to be a burden to anyone and you don't want to phone them up and bring them down. My suggestion to this person is, when you're in that headspace, part of the sort of stinky, thinky, heavy energy is taken over. So you're not acting from your true self. So what I would say for that is, when you're in a good mood, think about like 5 people who you would normally think would be quite happy to hear from you. Make a little list when you're in a good place. And then when you are in that sort of more negative vibe, look at that list and go, oh, such and such probably will like to hear from me. Now, your head will probably be like, oh, I don't want to be a burden or anything like that. But you wrote that list when you were in a good place. And so you should trust the energy that you came with, that intention, than where you are at now. Because a lot of the time people, if you are struggling, I'm sure people would like to hear from you. Even if you don't talk about your problems, just hearing somebody else's voice might actually just shift you out of that funk, basically.
Yeah, you're so right. That's brilliant advice, because I found that if I push myself to, like, I don't know, have a walk with a friend, a socially distanced walk, even around the local park, I feel energized because of it. It's like that sort of bouncing off each other and a different face, getting some fresh air as well. That all helps, doesn't it? So that's brilliant.
Fresh air. Yeah, the nature, fresh air, even when it's chucking it down, just put the right clothes on, wear extra layers, put your wellies on. Just, it just changes. You just change your environment, because I think sometimes you go into this like negative vortex of heavy energy, and it's just important to remember, just got to move out of it. And that's why I recommend dancing. But like you said, nature, seeing somebody else, bouncing your energy off. And I think that's the hard bit about these lockdowns, is you don't have that, it doesn't come across the same on Zoom quite the same way. And I think just having that, energetic exchange, even going to the supermarket, what I miss now is just chatting utter rubbish to strangers. My mum would tell me off for talking to strangers. But just that energy exchange, even introverted people need to be speaking to, just having that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard it said so much, and I can relate to this myself. I think I heard Philippa Perry talk about how that socializing muscle kind of gets a bit out of practice, and you start to think, don't you, right, we're going to come out of lockdown, and the thought of going out and socializing and chatting with loads of people, it can freak us out a bit. So
yeah, totally. I had somebody asked me to come on their podcast a few weeks ago, and I genuinely had a panic about, thinking, have I even forgotten how to speak?
Oh,
am I still coherent? Am I just going to grunt?
Oh gosh, we've gone into our own little cocoons, haven't we? In many ways, and it's sort of like tentatively, I suppose, gently coming out of them with help from wonderful people like you to inspire us and give us that confidence, which is that's a big word, and that's something you're really passionate about. Is that right? With running workshops and helping people with confidence. Yeah. I mean, is it anything you particularly you'd like to share there?
What would I like to share? Well, it's quite funny because I sort of, I mentioned earlier about sort of having a background in low self-esteem and depression and anxiety, and that was something I grew up with for a long time. But the funny thing is I was always, everyone perceived me as confident because of the clothes that I wore and the sort of energy, and for a lot of it was a mask, going back to that not wanting to be a burden to people. I didn't want people to know that I was struggling. So it was an element of people pleasing, but it was also an element of like, oh, well, I don't really want people to know the real me. And it was a lot of imposter syndrome and stuff like that. And when I realized this was an issue, it actually started off with me thinking that, the thing that was important to me was happiness. I went on a mission to, people have referred to me as the happiness ninja, and that's sort of the project that I was doing earlier. It was about happiness, but it's really important. What I've found in the sort of journey to happiness is the things that make you happy are knowing who you are, because you can keep making choices, but if you don't know who you are and you don't accept who you are, then you're going to make a lot of wrong decisions. I made a lot of wrong decisions following sort of society's path of go to school, go to university, get a job, don't focus on what you enjoy, focus on the money, that sort of thing. And I followed a path that wasn't me. And the further I went away from my true self, the more my depression was, prevalent in my life. And going back to the confidence side, is I realized that my message was actually deeper than happiness. It's actually confidence, and it's finding out who you are, liking that person, but also accepting that, we've got so-called flaws, and, we think that people won't accept them, but it's just about acceptance. And so for me, confidence is actually being able to own who I am, not just put this front up that people think is confident. It's actually, embodying that. And yes, it's sort of, it all clicks into place suddenly when you're not pretending to be a certain way, to be accepted or liked, or, to tick the boxes that we're meant to. So yeah, it's kind of a roundabout way, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and that chimes in with, I think on your website, I read a review of a lady that you worked with. Sorry, I can't remember her name, but she talked about how you worked with her to come up with photos that demonstrated who she was. And she talked about it being really positive on so many levels, but also in that it would give potential clients a clear impression of who she was about, what she was, to be, owning her dynamism and who she was. And if anyone was put off by those photos, then that worked out for the best. It was a good way of sort of connecting with the right people, her tribe, if that doesn't sound too hippie-ish.
No, it's totally true, because we live in such a visual society, with adverts and images on Instagram and all over social media. And they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. And also we see people's branding and their images and everything before we even read the words. So, and we don't realize there's so much non-verbal sort of communication. And I think by expressing that, I do that on my own website. I feel like my website is like Marmite. You're either going to go, oh my goodness, where has this woman been my whole life? Or she's too nutty, not for me. And that's great from a business perspective, because you don't want to waste your time speaking to people that aren't the right fit, who you're not going to enjoy working with anyway. So why not attract, be like a lamp to a moth or something, and attract people that are right for you. And it's the same with not just business, by accepting who I am and embodying that person, I've been able to attract friendships and business opportunities and experiences from the people who are just you're going to enjoy being around those people rather than having to put up a front or wondering whether these people like you or not.
Yeah, I find you incredibly refreshing, because I seem to recall we had a bit of a, I don't know, it was an online brief interaction recently about LinkedIn, for example. And yeah, how do we say it nicely? But it can seem in some places a little bit playing it safe, and you really stand out, and I'm seeing more content that really stands out, and I'm trying in my own little way to do that as well. But to me, that's what attracts me to your sort of business and branding and the people you work with, because you are, true to yourself. And like you say, it resonates, and you kind of find your tribe, don't you? And that's really powerful. And, little things like, it does make me smile. Obviously, I can't say the title in full here, but you have an F It Bucket Friday event, which is, I'm proud of myself there, remembering to say that correctly. Obviously, I haven't said the full word there, but
it rhymes with bucket.
Yeah, I think we know, don't we? But yeah, I mean, that is ace. And you've even managed to carry that on through lockdown as well, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? I love that.
Yeah, well, that started basically a few years ago. I noticed that a lot of grown-ups were not having as much fun as children. And part of happiness and part of enjoying life is to remember to have fun and embrace creativity and stuff like that. And I started an event called Unicorn Club, which was grown-ups kids parties.
I love that.
Why should kids have all the fun? So it was inviting adults along to leave all of their grown-ups problems at the door and come and play and just embrace their inner child. And before I let them come into the event, I didn't want them taking in relationship problems. I didn't want them taking in money woes or anything that was on their mind. I wanted them to be as free as possible. So I said, before they come into the event, they've got to put their problems in the bucket.
Yeah.
And some people found it really cathartic, before they'd even come and colour in or bounce around on a space hopper. They were, space hopper jousting is a thing, honestly. But yeah, they would spend like a good 10 minutes like on scribbling out and screwing up these problems, chucking them in the bucket and scribbling. I was like, come on, you can come in and play. And then one day I actually had a rummage through the bucket, and I just was interested in, what sort of things were people, keen to leave behind. And there were like about 8 different themes. There was, money, relationships, family, career, friendships, self-identity. And, this is an absolutely full bucket full of people's woes, but everything fits into these categories. And so I thought, perhaps there are things that people aren't talking about as much as they should do. And maybe people don't realise that we are a lot more similar than we think. I used to feel like I was the odd one out for a long time. And so I just thought, well, let's start talking about these things. So I started a live chat show on Facebook. And it initially started where I got a special guest in, and they literally were invited to have a rummage in my bucket. Whatever came out, whatever came out was what we needed to talk about that day. And it's sort of leaving it, going back to being a bit hippie-ish, but whatever. It literally leaving it to the power of the universe to decide what we were going to talk about. So there was no plan, there was no need for prep, and we would just give my insight, their insight, and our worldly experience. And I guarantee somebody always needed to hear whatever we spoke about, whether it was the person watching on Facebook, sometimes it was the person sitting next to me, and sometimes it was even, the words would come out my mouth. I was like, goodness, I needed that advice.
Wow.
And so it just started, it became a chat show, and it's been great because, we were able to continue it over lockdown. I just brought my partner on and said, you are my weekly guest for however long this carries on.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I love that concept. Absolutely love it. And I know that I think somewhere I've read that you've written about yourself as well, is that you are an empath. Now, Antonia and I, she couldn't make it today. She's gutted. But Antonia and I on the podcast, we're quite spiritual. We're quite hippie-ish, if you like. We're open to all things like that and the universe and sending out positive vibes. So, yeah, can you tell us a bit more about that empathic side of you? Or
yes, well, it's something that I didn't realise was like a superpower, basically. I realised that I started using it in my photography because I initially started as an event photographer. And like I said, there was just something about being able to feel when people's energy shifted or their self-doubt kicked in. Like literally, I can see micro expressions and energy shifts in people when the voice of doubt kicks in, or when suddenly, just something changes in them and they become anxious or worried, and I seem to know what to do to sort of bring them out of it. So,
wow.
I didn't realise that was my superpower, but yeah, I've done it all my life. I remember I can't remember how I got into it, but I volunteered to be a classroom assistant when I was a sixth former. And I was helping in German class, and the teacher actually said, "Oh, you can give a bit of the lesson if you want." And she actually pulled me up at the end and said, I don't know how, because you didn't actually know any of these children, but you didn't go straight to answer the question. When I asked a question and the kids would put their hands up, I didn't naturally go for the one that would put me. I could see which kid wanted to answer but didn't have the courage to do so.
Wow.
And she just said, you managed to just be able to pick that up and read people. So,
gosh.
So yeah, be careful what you're thinking around me.
I'm nervous now.
But no, I'm only joking. But it's just been it's been an absolute, just an epic skill. It's not something that you learn. It's not something I can put on a CV or LinkedIn. I'm really good at it. Well, maybe you could, but at the workshops that I do, I can see when somebody is maybe needs an approach tailoring a little bit different. And again, that's been commented by people who've visited my workshops. They'll be like, I just love the way you knew not to push me or let me take a different route. And so,
gosh.
So yeah, that's being empathetic is just being able to sort of speak a language without words, I guess, is the best way to put that, to feel.
Gift.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. It just fits in so well with what you do, and you seem to me to be making such a difference in the world, and it's gosh, yeah, what a thrill it must be to, as you say, to go on that path, to be able to do something that you absolutely love and helping people.
Yeah. Well, it's not come without its challenges. Like I said, I've got the past of low self-esteem, so my progress has been more like a cha-cha-cha, in that I'll take a step forward and then I'll probably take about 6 back, especially in the past, and had a lot of self-sabotage. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I had a lot of lack of trust in my own ability, especially because a lot of my ideas are a bit out there sometimes. They always end up being needed, but they're not always the done thing. And so I had a lot of doubt around that. And so, it took a lot to get to where I am now, which is kind of why I want to sort of spread the goodness. I had to do a lot of this on my own. And I've just started a community called the Courage and Confidence Crew. And it's just because, like I said earlier, there are people who want to do, to use their sort of gifts, or even find out what their gifts are, or their passions, or their purpose, or have the courage to sort of step out of the box that they've put themselves in, whether that's a career or a role, and to sort of give them the sort of inspiration. So we're doing that together at the moment, and just being able to go, well, I've done this and it hasn't been easy, but you don't have to do it by yourself.
Oh, that sounds brilliant, because I've read about the group that you've set up, Courage and Confidence Crew.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening now and they're interested in finding out more about either this or any other of the wonderful workshops and services that you offer, how can they do that? How can they best get in touch?
The best place is either my website, it's professionalrebel.co.uk, and also Facebook. I seem to, procrastinate on that particular scroll hole quite a lot. So.
And just, I know we're running out of time and I need to let you go and live your life.
It's gone so quickly.
It's flown by. Any future plans that you can share with us that we might want to look out for in the future?
Well, before lockdown, we were actually planning a big comeback of Unicorn Club, which I think now is going to be much needed as soon as we're allowed to. So
yes.
I've got a helper to help me market that. Future plans is to grow the Courage and Confidence crew. Basically, it's it's a community where we have sort of weekly mentoring sessions with me via Zoom, and there's what we call what's now been called as Brave Flicks. So instead of Netflix, it's Brave Flicks, and I'm basically a whole content library of just my sort of tips and courses and PDFs, and we've got guest experts coming in, to help with. I'm not an expert in everything, so I've managed to build up a good connection of people around the world on my travels who are able to teach, the self-development, the courage, the, just finding your purpose, all that sort of stuff that I teach, to just create a big library and community of people who want to do awesome things. So it's just growing that and getting that more out into the world now. So
wow, it sounds incredible.
It's incredible. I love it. I love the people that we've got in there. And
so is it a case of you can join and you can just join and stay with it for as long as you need, or is there a set period of time?
Well, what I found is it's if people come into one of my workshops, they'd have a great time. They get this insight. They fill up with lots of inspiration. Like, yeah, right, I'm going to go and do this great thing. And then life happens. And you will know this from any sort of self-development workshop you've been to. You have all this great I'm trying to think of the word. You have this insight, you want to get going, but then life happens or your old habits kick in, and then next thing you know, you're probably beating yourself up because you're not putting together, doing the work that you thought you were going to. So this is an ongoing thing, that it's a membership. You can stay as long as you want. And, as long as you're the right person who fits in, send an application, let me know that you want to join. And we've got a good crew of people. And it's not just me cheering people along. We've got some great people already checking up on each other for accountability and saying that they're going to do what they're going to. Honestly, I couldn't have imagined it to be this good.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Yeah. It sounds much needed at this particular point in time, especially. So
definitely. I think as the world opens up, I think people have had a lot of time to think about what they're doing with our time on the planet. And so, as soon as the world opens up, I think people are going to be raring to go. So if we can get rid of self-doubt and stuff
precious.
Like that.
Yeah, yes. Life is precious, isn't it? And we need to embrace it and make the most of it. And is there anything you'd like to add before we finish up, MarieClaire?
Ooh, yeah, just a reminder to have fun. Anything you do, put that element of fun and joy into it. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do things as quickly as you tell yourself. That there's nobody's told you that it needs to be done by a certain time other than your own opinion. So give yourself a break. And we're in a really, really strange time right now. So don't go easy on yourself. Give yourself a good hearty hug.
Oh, I love the sound of that. Thank you so much for inspiring us and sprinkling a heady dose of fairy dust on us for this special edition of the podcast. It's been wonderful. And
you're so welcome.
Perhaps we could invite you back on again in the future to give us some updates. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to our special guest for this week, MarieClaire Ashcr, Professional Rebel. Thanks also to Dr. Stephen Kenyon Owen for the music, which brings the podcast to life. And a hearty thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy it and get something out of it. That's why we're here. Please do get in touch if there's anything you want to share with us or any subjects you think we should cover in the future. If you want to listen to any other episodes, we're in the usual places: iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and we're all over social media via the We Are Chester channels. Anyway, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.